Fans be confident. 5 reasons to feel good about Oklahoma entering 2023, plus so much more on tonight's episode of Locked On Sooners Live.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It is Locked On Sooners Live tonight. So happy to have all of you along with us. Feel free to just start tossing those comments, those questions into the comments section there, and we'll rifle through a bunch of them as we roll through the show tonight. I'm your host, Josh Helmer, here on Locked On Sooners, and of course, 94.7 The Ref. Kind of a weird Monday where we didn't have a radio show with the remodel going on at the Ref Studios, but we're here, baby, Locked On Sooners Live, and so happy to be a part of bringing you coverage, your team every single day right here on Locked On Sooners. And tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel Sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/Locked On. Yeah, a little bit different day for me. Obviously, I didn't have the radio duties, but that means we get more time to hang out with you in a fashion where I'm ready to roll tonight, right? Saved all the good stuff for this evening. So let's jump right in, everybody. Boomer Sooner to you all, and a very happy early 4th of July to everyone out there. Hope you're enjoying time with your friends and family. So the Oklahoma Sooners, why should we be confident? My man, Mr. John Williams, well, he's not with us this evening, but he has provided the content for us tonight. Dillon Gabriel, reason number one for John Williams. You can check out his story as well, by the way, over at SoonersWire.com. Here's what John writes about Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel could have been better on third down and in the red zone in 2022. If he and the offense is just a little bit better, the Sooners likely avoid their first losing season in 25 years. Unfortunately, in spots, they weren't. But those situations shouldn't diminish that Gabriel was really good for Oklahoma in his first year starting in the Power 5. Now with an offseason to reflect on what went well and what didn't, Gabriel can build on a 2022 season that led to winning the Big 12's Newcomer of the Year award. John writes he's got a good deep ball that will help the Sooners make plays in the passing game. He's a leader, has a strong command of the offense, and while there are certainly questions at wide receiver and along the offensive line, Gabriel's presence is a stabilizing force for a unit that saw a lot of turnover this offseason. Yes, obviously there is some turnover for Oklahoma in terms of the two offensive tackles, Wanye Morris, Anton Harrison. Though we feel good. We feel good with Walter Rouse coming in. Tyler Guyton is somebody along the offensive line that seems like every expert out there, NFL prognosticators and draft whizzes out there, they like Guyton. They like Guyton as somebody that could be a definite breakout type guy in terms of NFL draft boards. So offensive line, I mean, clearly right there with those two on the perimeter, the two tackles, you're replacing a lot right there. And of course, Marvin Mims, your receiver, who you're replacing. Feel really, really good about running back for Oklahoma going into this thing with both Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk. If you're new to this channel right here, Locked On Sooners, your team every single day, then maybe you haven't heard me say this. But if you're familiar with the channel, chances are you've heard me say this. I'm really, really excited about I'm really, really excited about what Gavin Sawchuk, who he can be and what he'll accomplish in 2023 for Oklahoma. And, coming out of the bowl game, I'm really excited about what we saw Oklahoma do rushing the football, not just with Gavin Sawchuk, but obviously with Javonte Barnes as well. I think that as you're entering this season and you lose your top wide receiver in Marvin Mims, your top target, and you're looking to see Jalil Farouk, a name that we'll talk a lot about throughout the next couple of months into the beginning of the season as someone that is supposed to be ascending and taking that step into a number one wide receiver role. As all of that's happening, by the way, I've got names jotted down, wide receivers to think and talk about tonight. Somebody's got to catch some footballs from Dillon Gabriel, right? There's 3,168 passing yards and hopefully counting in 2023 to go around, 25 touchdowns and hopefully counting for Dillon Gabriel and company to go around in a 62.7% completion percentage. That's hopefully going upwards for Dillon Gabriel and Oklahoma. So somebody's catching the reps. We just don't know who beyond Jalil Farouk and Drake Stoops for the most part is going to be those top targets. Excited about the possibility of that emergence. You talk about the Cheez-It Bowl and items that stuck out. And if I had to power rank items that stuck out from the Cheez-It Bowl, number one for me would be the way that Oklahoma ran the football. I thought that was really, really encouraging. Number two would be if you're buying stock in the idea that Florida State's going to be a legitimate ACC contender, a legitimate national championship contender in 2023. I think the other part of the Cheez-It Bowl that really stands out is the fact that I know, bear with me, everybody, it's another close loss for Oklahoma, but I think that has to be something that you take away from the game, is that Oklahoma hangs with a team that a lot of people feel like is, last season outside of the 3-game losing streak that Florida State had. A lot of people feel like Florida State's a team to look out for on the national landscape. So that would be something that jumped out to me. And then getting back to the wide receiver conversation here, full circle, I thought there were signs that LV Bunkley Shelton, Oklahoma wants to make him a big part of the offense going forward. Obviously, he'll have his work cut out to earn serious spots in the rotation. I mean, so many names there to talk about for Oklahoma. They went out and were busy. They were active in the transfer portal, bringing in an Andrell Anthony, going out and getting a Longhorn, taking him to the right side of the Red River. Welcome aboard, Brennan Thompson. So, there's all sorts of interesting names in the wide receiver room for Oklahoma. And then something that I've talked a lot about, Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson. Which one of those two are really going to take those big steps forward for Oklahoma? You need one of the two. I told John the other day that in pairs for Oklahoma, you kind of look at this roster and you break it down, and whether it's wide receiver, whether it's offensive tackles, guards, whatever, it's like every position group you look at, it's you're hoping both. You're hoping all of the above. But in the case of wide receivers, the either or there for me is if you get either Jaden Gibson or Nick Anderson taking a big time step forward for Oklahoma, oh man, offensively, you're in such a better spot. So Dillon Gabriel, he's got weapons at his disposal. I think that's that's a good reason to be optimistic about Oklahoma heading into this season. John's, which by the way, John, hello, I see you in the chat. He says, while I may not be on air, I'm here in spirit. Josh crushing it this week while I'm on vacation. John, you have been missed. We can't wait to have you back, but obviously the internet connections can sometimes be less than reliable when you're out and about on vacation. But you were missed, and we were ripping through your reasons to be optimistic for 2023 here. Brent Venables, that's a no-brainer, right? If you were confident about Brent Venables being hired for Oklahoma, 6-7 season, I would hope is not enough to turn you off to the idea that Brent Venables is Oklahoma's coaching answer now and into the future. Brent Venables, I think you have to be a believer in the track record that Brent Venables has. And I've said it with John, I've said it a number of times, radio side here on Locked On Sooners. The trajectory for one Brent Venables when he took over the defensive coordinator position at Clemson was, it was not according to plan in year one for Clemson and Brent Venables defensively. I meant to jot these numbers down. One of these weeks, ladies and gentlemen, I'll come back in fully prepared with this Brent Venables 1, 2, 3 year trajectory. But just take my word for it here. Year one, not great defensively for Clemson and Brent Venables. Year two, some definite, legitimate improvement. And then year three, you're talking about Clemson, basically the top defense nationally. So Brent Venables, and not just defensively for Brent Venables, the holistic belief in one Brent Venables and his vision for this program, right? Still got to be a believer there. Safety depth. Here's an area that we've talked a lot about. Reggie Pearson's probably one of the sneaky additions out of the transfer portal for Oklahoma. Texas Tech transfer comes in. Obviously, made a big hit on Dillon Gabriel in that contest at the end of last season, but looks like he can be somebody that can really come up and be a physical safety for Oklahoma back on the back end of the defense. Key Lawrence is somebody that probably we forget about at times for Oklahoma. And then Billy Bowman. We know about Billy Bowman. Looks like he's just on that path to being a star for Oklahoma. And I think it's obvious. I know that falling in love a little bit, dangerous game to play coming out of one spring game, but I'm all aboard the Peyton Bowen's going to be a star and is going to be a star very, very quickly at Oklahoma. Said it coming out of the spring game. Remember, Bowen had the interception, and really it was a play that, yeah, it should be made. It's a pass that was underthrown. Peyton Bowen, hey, he plays it beautifully, plays it perfect. Picture perfect the way you're supposed to play it, fundamental the way you're supposed to play it. But those are the types of plays that are supposed to be routine in the defensive backfield. Having said that, those haven't necessarily been routine plays for Oklahoma. And so for Peyton Bowen to go out in the spring game immediately, come in with all of the hype, the 5-star reputation, and then to go out and make that play, even though I would, again, describe that to me as, hey, that's kind of supposed to be a routine play. It's right in the breadbasket because of the way that you played it. We just haven't seen Oklahoma do a lot of that over the last, I don't know, take your pick number of years. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, as you break down the safety depth, this is reason number 3 here. Reasons to be optimistic, courtesy of my man John Williams at Sooners Wire. Safety depth. Yeah, I love what's going on back there for Oklahoma with Pearson, with Bowman, with Peyton Bowen, Robert Spears Jennings, and, another name that people are really, really excited about. Number 4, running back depth. Yeah, I think you've got 2 bona fide stars in the making. Javonte Barnes obviously was the player for Oklahoma, true freshman player for Oklahoma that saw the most snaps a season ago, and for good reason. He was college ready. I fully suspect that he'll only be better here for Oklahoma in year 2. And I've been singing the praises before we're doing this live, ladies and gentlemen, on Locked On Sooners Live tonight. I have not read through John's 5 reasons to be optimistic until right here, right now, with all of you fine people on the YouTube side and listening along wherever you consume your podcast here on the Locked On Network for Locked On Sooners. But sure enough, right off the top, you start talking about offensive weapons for Oklahoma, and before I've even seen John's list, both Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk come to mind. So all of that to say, John, complete agreement with you at running back. Just that duo, and that doesn't even get into Major and Hicks and Smothers, and oh, by the way, what's coming down the pipeline for Oklahoma at running back. Kenny, yeah, right here in the chat. Tawi looked good in spring. Yeah, don't want to shortchange Tawi either. You're looking pretty good at running back, but obviously a lot of folks would say it starts with that 1-2 of Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk, we think. And then this is pretty overarching, but yeah, you can't really tell the story of Oklahoma this offseason without saying the transfer additions, a reason to be very, very optimistic for OU. To me, that begins with Dasan McCullough. I think when we talk about reasons to be optimistic or confident going into this next season, there's so many of these that they merge together, right? They're interconnected. And that belief in Brent Venables, when you say, hey, I totally believe in Brent Venables and the future and the plan at Oklahoma, obviously somebody of Brent Venables' pedigree and his background, that means that you believe that 122nd nationally in total defense, that's not going to continue for Brent Venables, and that's not going to continue for Oklahoma. Now, having said that, a lot of these additions that we're talking about out of the transfer portal, they've got to be ding-ding-dings for Oklahoma. They've got to be hits for Oklahoma. And again, to me, that starts with somebody that was a freshman phenom at Indiana. That starts with Dasan McCullough, who we think is going to slide right into that Cheetah equation, and the rest will be history as we know it for OU, and he'll just kind of slide right in and be a star for Oklahoma. Though, again, you talk about this isn't a transfer portal edition, but Justin Harrington there, all we've heard, and I'll take the head coach at face value, when Brent Venables sings Justin Harrington's praises and, feel like I'm in an episode of Groundhog Day here. It's been off season where we're singing the praises of Justin Harrington. So that part scares me a little bit with Harrington, but I'm going to, again, until proven otherwise here this season, I'm going to take Brent Venables at face value on the deal and say that he believes, remember Justin Harrington, he's got the story where feels like year in and year out, we're having this conversation. He's somebody that's breaking out. He's a breakout candidate. Look out for Justin Harrington. And then for one reason or another, it hasn't happened at Oklahoma. Okay, that led to the point to where Justin Harrington, remember, enters the transfer portal. Doesn't really find a transfer portal landing spot destination. Winds up coming back to Oklahoma. And basically, the way the story goes was essentially told, okay, yeah, you can come back to Oklahoma, but you're going to have to prove that you belong back at Oklahoma. And listening to Brent Venables, Justin Harrington's done every bit of that. So while I think, like not everybody out there, but like a lot of people out there, quick to look at a transfer portal edition of Dasan McCullough and sort of anoint him as the starting cheetah, let's not forget about Justin Harrington in that battle. But I mean, up and down the roster, yes, if you're talking about reasons to be confident, let's hope again that the transfer portal is a yes across the board for Oklahoma. Just about any position group we look at for Oklahoma has been impacted by the transfer portal. You look at offensive tackle. Walter Rouse was a massive recruiting win out of the transfer portal for Oklahoma. We think we got a starting offensive tackle in Walter Rouse and maybe a really, really good potential NFL starting offensive tackle out of Walter Rouse. So it starts there, right? Then you start thinking about skill position guys offensively. Well, Austin Stogner, you think about this offense for Oklahoma. We're very, very hopeful that Austin Stogner just winds that clock back and forward at the exact same time, but winds it back to 2020 when it looked like Stogner was going to be the next great tight end at the University of Oklahoma. In some ways, that doesn't feel like a transfer portal edition just because, obviously Stogner started his career here at Oklahoma. And yet, again, transfer portal edition out of South Carolina for OU at tight end. Wide receiver. I mean, look, you got Andrell Anthony, you got Brennan Thompson. And before that, in some ways, I'm still counting LV Bunkley Shelton and JJ Hester as transfer portal additions for Oklahoma. Tyler Guyton from Kinney. I mean, up and down this roster, yeah, there's been a transfer portal infusion for the Sooners. And, you shift to defense. We've talked about Pearson in the defensive backfield. We've talked about McCullough. All of the defensive linemen, probably outside of just, Rouse at tackle because we feel so confident he's a definite starter for OU at offensive tackle. Outside of that, and maybe, Stogner, I think, is, as we're coming off of a spring where Caden Helms and Jason Llewellyn were dinged up, hurt throughout the spring, and we haven't really seen either of those two make serious contributions to Oklahoma. Stogner's somebody that, you just pencil right in sort of as a starter for Oklahoma at tight end as well. Jimmy says, hey, I'm hoping Stog has a big year. I think everybody, right, is hoping for that. It's sort of a storybook ending in some ways for Austin Stogner if this season goes really, really well for him and for Oklahoma. But beyond that, I mean, if it's not those two guys, if it's not Rouse, in McCullough too, if it's not Rouse or McCullough, those would be the first two names for me out of the transfer portal that those have got to be big time yeses. It feels like for Oklahoma in order for things to go the direction we're hoping they go, which is 6-7. Oh man, that's a big thing of the past, baby. And the Sooners are right back into winning a Big 12 championship and contending for a college football playoff. If not there, then I don't even know if there's one name that I can pick in terms of the transfer portal overhaul along the defensive line. I mean, it's everywhere, right? On the defensive line for Oklahoma that you're hopeful that you've totally changed things with what you've added out of the transfer portal for OU. It's up and down. It starts with the edge guys for Oklahoma there with Rondell Bothroyd and obviously Trace Ford in that mix. Lacey, we think the issue there, but Devon Sears, right? On and on and on. So you can play that game out of the transfer portal for Oklahoma defensively along the defensive line. It's got to be impact guys for Oklahoma. Got to be impact guys. And then, as Kenny points out, again, you go a little bit further back into that last transfer portal cycle for Oklahoma. I would, certain guys where we're having that conversation, for example, LV Bunkley Shelton, JJ Hester, Jonah Laulu, those types of names, they're transfer portal additions from the last cycle. So almost kind of look at those guys as we need in-house development, right? They've been here. You've recruited those guys. You've got them on campus. They've been here 1 year. And now it's time for, like many folks on this roster, the in-house guys that were here last year, there need to be substantial leaps for Oklahoma. So, yeah, transfer portal, that's a long-winded way to say agreed. It needs to be a big-time area for Oklahoma where folks across the board are impact guys for OU. Tonight's episode, as we move along here with reasons to be confident, I'll share a couple of my other ones here for you. Just some thoughts that came to me, not just and check out, by the way, John's story, SoonersWire.com, where you can check out all of his 5 reasons why Oklahoma fans should be confident. But some of my reasons before we move on to some recruiting notes and nuggets and all of your comments tonight as well. We got a great crowd in here on Locked On Sooners Live. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. A very happy 4th of July to you all as well out there. Spend it with your family, spend it with your loved ones, your friends, so on and so forth. It's important, right, to spend time with family and friends at the holidays. But this episode brought to us by FanDuel Sportsbook, FanDuel.com/lockedon, where you can make every moment more by taking a first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet back in the amount that you bet in bonus bets. That's up to $200. That's right. You bet just $20. You're landing $200 back in bonus bets, win or lose. So that's $200 you can spend betting money line, over, under, all those fun prop bets, home run prop bets, which July 4th, right? Sort of, if the NBA calendar gets Christmas Day, then July 4th, we know, belongs to FanDuel and Major League Baseball. And all of those bets that you want to place, you can wager on their safe, secure app. It's super easy to use, and you get paid instantly, which nobody wants to wait around, right? So sign up today, FanDuel.com/lockedon, to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. Okay, so a couple of quick reasons to be optimistic from me before we transition into some other topics here for tonight's episode of Locked On Sooners. The low-hanging fruit, which, by the way, just real quickly, not to run down all of these again, but John's 5 reasons. Number 1, Dillon Gabriel. Number 2, Brent Venables. Number 3, safety depth. Number 4, running back depth. And number 5, the transfer additions. I mean, number 1 for me, in addition to all of those items, I would just say, feel like I've talked a good bit about this at length tonight, but I'm confident that the defense is going to improve, guys. I really am. Brent Venables has the track record. I mean, the guy has coached some of the best defenses and some of the best players defensively for a reason. It's not like Brent Venables and this coaching staff that he's brought along with him, they haven't magically forgotten how to coach defense. So I'm confident that if I don't even know what number I'd feel confident putting Oklahoma's defensive improvement at. Is it too ambitious to say top 50 defensively? I don't think that it is for Oklahoma. We were having that same conversation a year ago going into it, and it makes us all feel a little bit silly now. But living in the moment and with that excitement and that enthusiasm going into last season, it didn't feel crazy. But we had a lot of folks right here on this channel saying, oh, please, Brent Venables taking this thing over defensively. It'll be a top 30 class overnight. And, well, I'm not breaking any news to you. It didn't play out that way. Defensively, you had a ton of problems, but I'm optimistic that, again, in tandem with the additions that you've made out of the transfer portal and just the coaches that are steering the vehicle here, the Sooner schooner, if you will, for Oklahoma, they're going to improve defensively. Top 50, I don't think that's too ambitious. Jimmy, top 50 with his schedule, which nice little segue into exactly what I was going to talk about next. The schedule. Oklahoma, you should be confident, is going to go win 9 or 10 games against this schedule. There are no meat and potatoes to this non-conference portion of the schedule. It's win-win-win, ladies and gentlemen. It's Arkansas State, SMU, an SMU team that got worse because Tanner Mordecai transferred out and went to Wisconsin. And then the trip, obviously, over to Tulsa before you get into the Big 12 schedule, which, again, does not feature Kansas State, does not feature Baylor, does not feature Texas Tech. 3 teams that a lot of people nationally, locally and nationally, locally almost more importantly than nationally, because the local folks are in tune. They're paying attention to what they think is reasonable in the Big 12 conference. And Kansas State, and probably to a lesser extent, Baylor, Texas Tech more than Baylor. You hear a lot of optimism about Texas Tech with Shuck and obviously what McGuire and company are doing there. Folks are excited about Texas Tech going into this season. We'll see if that's a little bit too ambitious, but to that point and to that end, I think a lot of people, or at least myself included in this, I'm of the belief that we could be off-on switch with Baylor here, and last year was the off switch for Baylor, and we're about to flip that switch back on for the Bears. I think that they and Shapen will be improved in 2023. I've sort of earmarked this thing as TCU's a fallback candidate for me. Losing Duggan, having been to the national championship game, I think that it's just easy to look at TCU and say, okay, can they duplicate it again to that extent with Sonny Dykes in year 2? I can see. I don't think TCU is going to be a bad football game. I think it'll be a challenging into the season for Oklahoma in Norman versus TCU. 8-win TCU team, something around that range. I'm definitely not expecting double figures. Not that I'm expecting that from Baylor, but I also don't expect Baylor to be bad in 2023. So I think you got 3 of the schools that, to me, if I were to power rank or send in my Big 12 preseason poll right here, right now, where we sit on July 3rd, I would have Kansas State, Baylor, and Texas Tech toward the top of my Big 12 power rankings. And I think I'd have TCU behind each of those 3 right here, right now. Some people would tell me I'm a little bit crazy for that with TCU, and well, time will tell whether or not that's right. But those three not being on the schedule, that's advantageous for Oklahoma. So you get into what the conference schedule looks like. We should not be, even though it's a built-in blackout game for the Bearcats. It's the first Big 12 game for the Bearcats. Yeah, it'll be a raucous. It'll be an intimidating road environment. But Cincinnati is not a program that Oklahoma should feel like it should lose to this season in 2023. So that road trip, the rest of the road trips, I saw Josh Pate talking about this the other day. I don't think he's necessarily crazy. I think I've been actually saying similar things here, that as I look at the road trips for Oklahoma this season, Kansas to me might be the most difficult. Just what we know going in because of Jalen Daniels, the quarterback, back. Kansas, to me, I'm not optimistic that, as I'm hopeful for Oklahoma, they fix a lot of their defensive woes. I'm not real hopeful that that's going to happen with Kansas, but just because it is in Lawrence and it's been years and years and years since the Jayhawks have beaten you, and you've got the going out the door factor of the Big 12 conference at play, that I'm not willing to get on board with Josh Pate as Kansas is springing the upset over Oklahoma, but I get what he's saying. Offensively with Daniels, Kansas is going to be they're going to be tough to deal with. And to me, I can see where that could wind up being the most difficult road trip for Oklahoma in 2023. But if that's the most difficult road trip in 2023 for Oklahoma, I think you're in pretty good shape with what the schedule looks like. I've said it time and time again. I'm not a believer in Bowman for Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State is a fallback candidate in this conference too. And BYU, I need to see who and what is BYU in 2023 before I look at that and say that, outside of just going to Provo and again the welcome to the Big 12 factor at play there, I don't know that BYU guys is altogether going to be a great football team in 2023. So, and then you get into the rest of it, which is Iowa State at home. That was a team that, man, the Hawkeye State offense to be desired, left to be desired in 2022 in the Hawkeye State. And that goes for Iowa State too with Deckers. You would think just gradual improvement having been a starter last season for Deckers, but I just don't see Oklahoma losing that game to Iowa State in Norman. I know Iowa State's been this weird opponent at times for OU over the last however many years, where even when they're quote unquote bad or not good, Iowa State historically here of late has either beaten Oklahoma a couple of times or has given OU everything it could want and then some. But I don't know that that's going to be the case this season with Iowa State. So you get through Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa. You got the road trip to Cincinnati, Iowa State. And then you get to the game that, let's just call it what it is. It will define Oklahoma's season. It will define how we feel about the trajectory of the Brent Venables era. Midway point, report card. Give me that halfway through the semester report card in year 2 for Brent Venables. It's Texas, obviously, at the Cotton Bowl. Now, the way that everybody feels about Texas right now nationally, well, that could change pretty dramatically between now and then, depending upon what happens with Quinn Ewers. Does he make this leap in year 2? Does that consistency improve for Quinn Ewers in year 2? The way that it feels like a lot of people nationally are projecting that it will. I mean, folks, Quinn Ewers is somebody that is regarded as a top 15 NFL draft pick, first round, top 15 overall draft pick in a lot of places right now. And I get that with an NFL draft and, as far away as we are from the 2024 NFL draft, there's, just about every pick not named Caleb Williams and maybe a couple of other names you could throw at me there. I'm sure that there's some other names toward the top of the board where, those guys are going to be top 10, top 15 NFL draft picks in 2024. But beyond that, okay, I get it. There's a little bit of projection going on with the rest of a first round pick, but man, I got a long ways to go before I'm convinced that Quinn Ewers is that can't miss NFL draft pick right now. I understand the intangibles. I understand, and when I say intangibles, I guess I'm not even using intangibles in the sense that most people would refer to intangibles, right? I feel like when people say intangibles, that buzzword, that's talking about what's between the ears, right? Mentally, how you handle things. And really what I'm talking about is the raw talent. Okay, I get it. Quinn Ewers, 5-star talent coming out, went to Ohio State, comes to Texas, is regarded as this next great thing for the Longhorns. And he may well yet be that, but he also might not this season just have this right out of the gates start that everybody's expecting. And if things go horribly, horribly wrong in Tuscaloosa, the way that I've got a pretty good feeling things are going to go horribly, horribly wrong, it just feels like to me that game is tailor-made right now for Texas to go win that thing by 3 or 4 scores, or Alabama to go win that thing. Excuse me, everybody. Nobody panic out there. Alabama to go win that thing by 3 or 4 scores, just because I went on a radio station the other day in Louisiana to talk about the SEC schedule that was unveiled. And the show host, who shall not be named, he's picking Texas to go down to Alabama and win that game. So that, in conjunction with a lot of other people out there that I see picking Texas to go win that game, the fact that last year was close and Texas played Alabama so well, and the fact that Alabama is going through a quarterback change, right, which for most anybody else would be good reason to, yes, pick Texas and pick the continuity that the Longhorns have, the skill folks that the Longhorns have in Xavier Worthy and so on and so forth. With Alabama, that's just fuel to the fire, baby. That's just more reason for Nick Saban and company to get hacked off that folks aren't picking Alabama to win that game and to go win the SEC. So, like I said, I mean, to me, that is like totally built up for Alabama to just ruin Texas's hopes early in the season and dramatically shift the national narrative around the Longhorns. But hey, maybe I'm dead wrong on this thing, and we'll see Texas go play well, win, and all of a sudden you head into the Cotton Bowl, where, again, I say right here, the season in large parts it'll get defined. It'll get defined and it'll get sorted out right there. And then beyond that, UCF, I don't think you look at the UCF game right here, right now, and worry too awfully much. Obviously, Kansas, Oklahoma State, I think Oklahoma State's down, but a couple of road trips that obviously, you got to take seriously in Jalen Daniels of Kansas and Oklahoma State, with all of the venom there of one final bedlam. I don't know that the venom of one final bedlam is enough to overcome what I think is a pretty sincere talent discrepancy between OU and Oklahoma State. And, oh, by the way, Trace Ford came to Oklahoma, for any Oklahoma State fans out there that are keeping track of things like that. And then West Virginia, BYU, and TCU. And I think, again, I've said TCU tonight, fallback candidate for me, in the sense that I don't expect TCU to be in the Big 12 championship game again this season. I don't expect TCU to be a double-figure win team in 2023, though I do think and do expect that TCU is going to be good and a bowl team again in 2023. I'm not factoring them in like Texas and Kansas State, maybe the same way in terms of the Big 12 championship race. So, hey, it's a long-winded breakdown of the schedule to me. When I look at this and I say surefire losses for Oklahoma, and spare me, everybody, got my Crimson and Cream Kool-Aid right here, folks. I really don't see a surefire loss on this schedule for Oklahoma. I just don't. And I know that, again, everything I could say about the burnt orange in Texas and we're projecting this or that with Quinn Ewers, it's fair criticism to say that we're doing a lot of that with Oklahoma heading into 2023 and the transfer portal additions. And really, that's just the reality of you finished 6-7 a season ago, and it's the off season for everybody, right? I mean, yeah, there's a lot of projections, but I just genuinely believe, and I wrote this down in my notes for the broadcast tonight. I dangerous to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. Okay. I'm going to knock on wood for you here. Can it really get much worse for Oklahoma than it got last season? I just don't know that it can. The three, and I look at last season and the one-score games, there's three that you really look at for me and say, okay, definite one-score games that Oklahoma lost: West Virginia, Texas Tech, Florida State in that category, and maybe there's one other that I'm not thinking of for OU that I would put as legitimate one-score losses. Kansas State, okay, more of a two-score. Baylor, more of a two-score loss for Oklahoma. But that being said, there's multiple games on the schedule where Oklahoma, don't you feel like they're going to remember how to win again in 2023? It's a program that's been built on double-figure wins and being the preeminent force in this Big 12 conference. And in its swan song season, I think Oklahoma is going to be out on a mission to remind everybody this has been Oklahoma's conference, the Big 12. So I just, to me, again, it's defensively, it's not going to get worse than 122nd. The close game, bad luck, if you will, for Oklahoma. Again, I think you have to be honest and say it wasn't 5 one-score losses for OU. So let's say it was 3 one-score losses for Oklahoma. I don't think Oklahoma's losing every single one of those one-score games in 2023. And I would trust, based on Brent Venables' track record and my belief in this program, that Oklahoma's going to win those games this season. So I'm optimistic that things are going to go well for Oklahoma. Okay. Some of your responses before we get out of here. The chat's been awesome, by the way. Appreciate you guys over there on YouTube. Chad comments, another year in BV's system too, Josh. Absolutely. Another year of learning what Brent Venables wants. At times, I think we did see, unfortunately, and maybe even it wasn't as glaring as other defensive lapses in the past for Oklahoma. There's a play or two in the TCU game and the Texas games that definitely come to mind where you had free runners, just wide open wide receiver, toss it over the top, race into the end zone. Generally speaking, there weren't a lot of those in 2022 for Oklahoma. And, over the last decade or whatever, it feels like there has been a lot of that for OU. So, having said that, and feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong there. It didn't feel like Oklahoma gave up a bunch of the just massive chunk play, free runner, gaping hole in the run game, right up the gut, left and right. I mean, it didn't feel like there were just a ton of those last season. It almost felt like Oklahoma cut those down in some ways. And again, maybe I'm speaking out of one side out of my mouth here, and it's totally inaccurate. So having said that, I mean, that speaks to how bad the rest of it was for Oklahoma defensively. And so if you don't have as many of those chunk play, everything went totally wrong plays for Oklahoma defensively, then yeah, I mean, to Chad's point, another year in Brent Venables' system too, Josh, it's cliche. We hear it all the time. And as somebody that sifts through, post-practice audio a lot, it does feel cliche. We do hear it a lot that it's just a little off here and there. And I do believe that with Oklahoma, there's some truth to that for Oklahoma last season. Now, obviously, the number one name of the game is Oklahoma needs to continue to add talent, which they hope they've done, to at least plug some holes temporarily via the transfer portal. And then obviously, they got to get really, really talented players, blue chip talent in these signing classes. That needs to be the bread and butter, which as we shift to item number 2 here, man, that was 40 some good minutes. Reasons to be confident for you folks going into this next season. Maybe along the way, some reasons to not be confident going into this next season. We've got another Taylor Tatum prediction in there for Oklahoma. So that's nice to see. It felt like it got quiet there for just a moment for Oklahoma on the Tatum front. Since you got the Robinson commitment, there were some that felt like maybe, or we're just getting nervous that this recruitment for Tatum had started swinging back maybe USC's direction. And yet, you've had a landslide of predictions for Oklahoma in the recruitment of Taylor Tatum. And now you got another one. And our friends, or lack thereof, our enemies, our frenemies from opposite the Red River, it matters when they put in a recruiting prediction for Oklahoma. You almost put more stock in that than you do sometimes the local folks. I said this, I think, last week in the live show that I love Parker Thune. I love McQuistion. I love Colin Kennedy, you name it, Brandon Drum. And I apologize for anybody else that I'm leaving out of the local Oklahoma recruiting experts beat out there. I trust those guys, trust their predictions. I know that they're very, very dialed in to what the Oklahoma camp feels is happening and really just to what recruits are telling them. But that being said, when it is Rivals Texas insider Brandon Holland that tosses in the prediction for Taylor Tatum, okay, that makes me feel good because generally speaking, I don't think that Texas insiders or Oklahoma State insiders or you name it insiders are in the business of trying to make Oklahoma fans feel too much better about themselves than at times Oklahoma fans do. So when that happens, it makes me feel like, okay, yeah, that's good news for Oklahoma when a Texas insider says, yes, there's reason to be optimistic here. So another Taylor Tatum prediction out there. I think, just reading the tea leaves, still feel good about Caden Durham for Oklahoma. I know that some got a little bit antsy about the LSU recruitment there for Durham, But, what you hear, the things that, the Parker Thunes and such that are in the know, I think still feel like Oklahoma's the favorite there. So that makes me feel like Oklahoma's still the favorite here. And I think it's going to be a 3 running back class for OU. Xavier Robinson, Taylor Tatum, and Caden Durham. I think those 3 are going to be in this class for Oklahoma. And man, that is a whale of a running backs class if that's what it winds up being for Oklahoma. My man DeMarco Murray have the Board of Regents, have they met this summer yet? I apologize if that note has slipped by me in recent weeks, or if we've got I know we've had how we can gear up for the SEC meetings recently, if not with the Board of Regents, just with power brokers, minds in Norman, the powerful minds in Norman to be City Hall, you name it, whatever, right? I know they've been meeting on how to get this city of Norman ready for the SEC, but I got news for you. It's time to get the Board of Regents together. If you just gave DeMarco Murray a raise, might be time to give DeMarco Murray another raise for what he's doing on the recruiting trail. My man is absolutely crushing it. Any sort of complaints we had in the past, man, that looks like a thing of the past. As we just whip around some of the recruiting nuggets out there, which again, thanks everybody for hanging out and being a part of Locked On Sooners tonight. Dasher, Bravo, which of course is a fantastic name, might I say, on the YouTube side. Devon Mitchell, mentioned yet? Had to reboot the router. No, we have not talked about Devon Mitchell yet. Sounds like there's more and more smoke out there that Devon Mitchell is in fact, this is someone out there that is in the 25 class, 5-star in the 25 class, tight end. It's seemingly Oklahoma, USC for the recruitment, though some other names have arrived in the recruitment. Miami, Alabama, I think, are a couple of names in the recruitment for Devon Mitchell that folks feel like here lately are legitimate competitors to Oklahoma for Devon Mitchell. Sounds like Devon Mitchell's going to reclassify to 24. And I know that we've talked about that, but it sounds like, again, there's some buzz building on that front. And I still think, even with the momentum that's building here for a Miami, for an Alabama with Devon Mitchell, ultimately, I'm going to still continue to bank on the Michael Hawkins relationship, his commitment for Oklahoma in the 2024 class. I think is gigantic for OU in that recruitment. And, really, I said this, I think in yesterday's show, but if it was the day before, I apologize. Mark Andrews, Stogner, I think what he's going to do this season, Braden Willis, what he did last season with Oklahoma. Okay, if you're talking about Miami as tight end and hey, Canes fans, no disrespect, you've earned your possibility alongside Iowa or whoever as tight end Oklahoma's had a nice little history with tight ends. Recently with Mark Andrews, and then obviously with his coaching staff with Braden Willis. And I think you're about to see a massive, again, breakout season for Austin Stogner. I talked a little bit about Stogner and what he means for Oklahoma this season in terms of transfer portal additions. I just think if Stogner stays healthy, based on what we saw in the production that we saw from Willis a season ago, I think Stogner's in line for a massive season. I'll give Oklahoma still some credit for Grant Calcaterra as well at tight end. I know that obviously it didn't play out health-wise the way we would have liked at Oklahoma, but winds up as we thought here at OU, Calcaterra being an NFL guy. Oklahoma's had a really, really nice history with tight ends. So, I mean, you think about, again, as it pertains to Devon Mitchell, the Hawkins relationship is huge. The success for Oklahoma with tight ends, and then just in general, Oklahoma's quarterbacking. If it's not Hawkins, if it's not Hawkins, then it's Jackson Arnold or it's Kevin Sperry down the road. Quarterbacks, folks, they're not going out of style in Norman, Oklahoma. And one more from Dasher here. This is pretty good. He'd be all for Wyatt Gilmore getting a shot at tight end if needed. Yeah, I think Gilmore, absolutely is somebody that could make that transition. He plays tight end, right, in high school up in Minnesota, though I think the plan is pretty firmly in place for Wyatt Gilmore to be in Miguel Chavis's room. But there's a lot of those guys that, if I'm Miguel Chavis or I'm Brent Venables or really, almost any of these assistant coaches on this staff, I'm recruiting folks that, and most of these kids that sign or commit to Oklahoma play offense and defense in high school. There's positional versatility for most of these folks, most of these kids that Oklahoma's in the mix for. And obviously Gilmore would fit that billing for OU, though I think he's defensive end all the way. Let's see here. Levy has to get the tight end on the field far more than he did in 2022. Willis wasn't on the field enough, in my opinion. Football. Yes, with the put that back up there real quick. The Oklahoma SEC logo already ready, baby, for the shift to the SEC. I don't even know if it wasn't that Willis and tight ends weren't on the field enough. I would like to ask this question, or have one of the Oklahoma beat reporters ask this question. Was it that Oklahoma at times didn't use the middle of the field enough, or did Dillon Gabriel not read the middle of the field enough? Because that, I think at times for Oklahoma was a glaring omission for Oklahoma offensively. So, and even the Pro Football Focus numbers, probably if we sat here and I don't have that breakdown in front of us, John, I'll put you on that assignment between now and next week, or now and our next live show, or just one of the shows that the next show you join me, John. But so Willis played 809 of a possible 1,019 offensive snaps. If you can do this right here, right now, John, that'd be great. The percentage breakdown of where Gabriel's passes went to, and the production percentage of where the receiving yardage was to, because definitely felt like the middle third of the field. I mean, that's got to be your bread and butter. And yet, even then, I felt like Oklahoma at times, again, here's from Dasher. This is exactly what I'm looking for. The intermediate routes. Maybe it's height for Dillon Gabriel, though, we've seen smaller quarterbacks do a great job with the middle third of the field. I don't know the answer for it. I don't know if it is that, if it's the size and looking over the offensive line and the defensive line, or if it's by play design. I think at times Jeff Lebby in Oklahoma, and who am I to sit here and be wildly critical of Jeff Lebby, though if I'm going to be critical of Jeff Lebby, I think at times Oklahoma got a little bit too involved in the gadget end around wide receiver option end around, or wide receiver go route. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that, over the middle portion of the field for Oklahoma. Some other little recruiting nuggets for you before we talk about Phil Steele on the way out the door, and before I wish you one final time a happy July 4th. Here's the dates to keep in mind. Justin Denson is a defensive back target for Oklahoma. Seems like that one's going Michigan State's way, but who knows, right? Maybe tonight into tomorrow we can see some movement for Oklahoma. You just never know in the recruiting world, though. There's been, countless predictions for Sparty in that one. Doesn't seem like that's going Oklahoma's direction. And actually, Justin Denson was supposed to announce on July 1st, but some issues for his mom, I think, getting to that recruitment ceremony. So now they pushed it back to tomorrow. A couple of names, speaking of Devon Mitchell, expecting an announcement on July 8th, as well as Marcus Easley. I do think Mitchell picks Oklahoma. Easley sounds like Alabama. Again, I'm hoping that there's some late momentum for Oklahoma. 5 days, 4 days can be a world of time in the recruiting sphere. Whatever those name, image, likeness, war chests look like, okay, let's start opening those up, because as others have documented, and we really haven't done this show just yet, put this on the bucket list, John. I'm not generally speaking, though I was accused of being Geraldo Rivera the other day in the YouTube comments. Generally speaking, I don't try to be a panic starter, though maybe it gets taken that way at times. I don't try to be a panic starter for Oklahoma. Some others out there might be, and that show is out there and it's been done by others. The offensive line misses so far in this class for Oklahoma. It's fair to be a little bit concerned about what's going on with OU in terms of offensive line recruiting. And yet I would say this for Oklahoma's behalf, just reading the reports from Parker Thune this weekend, and I don't want to take too much of his classified information. I would politely urge you and direct you to OUinsider.com as part of the Rivals Network. Parker Thune and Brandon Drum doing a tremendous job. I'll cliff notes it and say, check out Parker Thune's work. And he was out and covering Grant Brix this weekend. And without just giving all of his recruiting intel away, I would just say generically, the buzz that I had heard, not really from recruiting insiders, but almost from the Oklahoma fan base, was that this Grant Brix recruitment was over for OU, and it was a slam dunk, lock it up, throw away to Kansas State or Nebraska. And at least what I'm gathering from Parker Thune, Oklahoma's not out of that thing. So I say that to get to this point with Marcus Easley as well. We've got the July 8th date for Easley. The NIL or whatever it takes to convince somebody to be a part of this class for Oklahoma, at some point, if it's 0 for 8, if it's 0 for 10, if it's 0 for whatever, and folks, I think I put it out there that it looks like 0 for 12 could be a problem for Oklahoma in terms of offensive line recruiting, the way this is going, at least temporarily, on names not named Isaiah Autry. Eventually, don't swings and misses mean you're going to jack one out of the park eventually on the recruiting trail. I mean, can you really miss on that many targets? I mean, there's got to be, name, image, likeness sway to some degree that you can divvy on over to the offensive line. Or if it's not name, image, likeness for Oklahoma that tilts the scales. I mean, I'm telling every single recruit that I've got up front for Oklahoma, are you kidding me? You got a great chance to come play for OU right now, down the line for Oklahoma, because guess what? We need to fill spots, and Oklahoma, we have not filled spots just yet. Let's see here. Some comments before we get out the door, and then just a little bit more. Yes, Brix has a girlfriend at Kansas State. OU needs to ball out in the fall to impress or flip recruits. Yeah, not crazy to say that in regards to this recruitment. In regards to this recruitment or a number of other recruitments coming down the stretch. I mean, we could do a whole show on the importance of 2023 for just recruiting in the 24 cycle, in the 25 cycle. Is Gentry Williams 100% after the issue when he dropped on the field? Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like it for Gentry Williams. Obviously, there's going to be a scare involved for you, for me, obviously for Gentry Williams, I would imagine. And was it on the field or was it in a workout for Gentry Williams? But yeah, it sounds like it was just a freaky deal with Gentry Williams. And other than that, the medicals have come back and he's been cleared and it looks good. But when a situation like that arises, and, the only other thing I can think in recent memory, not that these are similar or that the medicals are the same, just thinking about Oklahoma players in recent memory, that something like a serious medical issue that you didn't know about coming in arises. Jalen Redmond would be the name that would come to mind. And again, not that it's a blood clotting issue for Gentry Williams, but with Jalen Redmond, it was. So yeah, when something like that happens, I think everybody's always going to be a little bit on guard for Gentry Williams because, hey, football's football, and we want to see Oklahoma win a Big 12 championship, and then beyond that, go win a national championship and number 8, and continue to do that in the SEC and SEC championships and national championships. But obviously, every Oklahoma fan wants Gentry Williams to be healthy and happy in his life. So that would be first and foremost. But that's that's a long way to get to the point that it sounds like it's okay. Yes, on that front for Gentry Williams. Phil Steele, again, I keep sort of kicking the can on this one down the road because, well, frankly, I just want John to be a part of the discussion. But just in closing, Phil still has Oklahoma as his number 2 most improved team nationally. Now, having said that, he also has Oklahoma, and not that this is super disrespectful given the fact that you finished 6-7 a season ago, but it's not like he's got Oklahoma number 7 or something in his preseason poll. He's got him number 2 most improved, which I guess it just shows you there's kind of nowhere to go but up. But he's got him number 20 in his preseason poll, which is second best out of Big 12 teams. TCU 25th, K-State 29, Texas Tech 39 in his magazine that he's released. And some of the reasons, again, we'll go more in detail about this when John and I, when we get the band back together, as it were. Venables knows defense and was very unhappy with how that group performed a year ago. These are the reasons Phil Steele is earmarking Oklahoma for his number 2 most improved. He notes the roster turnover. 56 of the 71 players that were rostered in the Alamo Bowl versus Oregon, they're gone. Which that number we get, I see that number get brought up a lot. Like, oh my goodness, look at this overhaul that they've worked, and Oklahoma has. They've even from last year to this year, what Oklahoma's done to overhaul the roster a little bit via the transfer portal, it's been a lot for OU, and yet probably not 56 out of 71. That's dramatic, but in general, you're over the course of, we're talking that's 2 years ago. So yeah, there's going to be quite a bit of turnover, but I get the point that Phil Steele is making. And then belief in Dillon Gabriel. You see Phil Steele optimistic again on Gabriel and the schedule for Oklahoma. If we come out of 2023 and Oklahoma doesn't race its way to 9-10 wins and a Big 12 championship game berth or a Big 12 championship, that to me is going to be alarming, a little bit alarming for Oklahoma. Oklahoma needs to bounce back right here, right now. They should be able to do that right here, right now. And shouldn't this story just end the way that it began for Oklahoma? My friends from Kansas State and from TCU and West Virginia and so on and so forth, but our old friends from this Big 12 conference, not the TCUs and West Virginias of the world, Kansas State and Iowa State and Baylor and Texas Tech and Texas, who's coming with us. Let's end this where it all began, right? You folks know that this is Oklahoma's conference. It's been Oklahoma's conference in the Big 12, so it needs to end as Oklahoma's conference on the way out. And I think that's a fitting way to close Locked On Sooners tonight. Hey, thank you to all of you fine folks in the chat tonight. You guys are awesome. Thank you for joining us on the YouTube side, just in terms of the live viewership. If you're not commenting, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop, to let you know when we're going live. But just really appreciate you guys stopping by, and want to wish all of you and your families a very, very happy 4th of July. And for the rest of this week, I'm going to take a little bit of a 4th of July break. We've got one more taping. I'm going to catch up with our man, Brian Smith, talk a little bit of recruiting tomorrow. But then after that, I'm going to take a little bit of time myself to spend with the family the rest of this week. But love you guys and the support for Locked On Sooners, for my partner, John, for all of you out there. Fun show again tonight. Thanks for being a part of it. Until next time, I'm Josh Helmer saying Boomer Sooner, everybody, and so long.